They say the army forges bows into men, that it's the ultimate crucible of character, a place where discipline and honor are hammered into the very soul of a young man. We tell ourselves this story, we believe in it. But what happens when that sacred institution, that house of discipline, becomes a private kingdom of fear? What happens when the uniform, meant to be a symbol of protection, becomes a predator's camouflage? This is the story of a family's visit to a military training academy. A visit that was supposed to be filled with pride and joy, but instead, it ignited a firestorm that would shake the very foundations of a powerful command. And it all began with a single, quiet phone call from an uncle who was far more than he appeared. The real question is, who was he calling? And more importantly, who was he? In the grounds of the Frontier Infantry Training Center, nestled in the stark, imposing landscape of life, was a relentless cycle of sweat, steel, and shouted orders. For the young cadets, it was both a trial by fire and the dawn of a dream. Among them was Ali Rasa, a boy from a humble family in Lahore, his eyes still holding the soft, hopeful light of a world outside these fences. He had joined the army with a heart full of patriotic fervor, picturing himself as a guardian of the nation's frontiers. He believed in the creed, in the brotherhood, in the unwavering honor of the uniform he wore. But the reality of the training center was far harsher than the posters and recruitment songs suggested. The true ruler of his platoon was not the esteemed commandant, nor the company commandant. It was a man named Sergeant Bilal Khan. Bilal wasn't just a tough instructor, he was a tyrant. The cadets had nicknamed him the Scorpion, not just for the venom in his words, but for the cruel, stinging pleasure he took in others' pain. He was a man who mistook brutality for discipline, a man whose own failures had curdled into a resentment for the hopeful boys under his command. He saw their potential not as something to be nurtured, but as a mirror reflecting his own stagnant career. And he sought to shatter that mirror, one cadet at a time. Ali, with his quiet diligence and refusal to be broken, had become Bilal's favorite target. The Scorpion would find fault in the perfect shine of Ali's boots, the crisp fold of his bedsheets, the very way he held his rifle. Every drill was an opportunity for humiliation, every inspection a stage for mockery. The other cadets watched, their faces a mixture of pity and relief that it wasn't them. They were a brotherhood, yes, but it was a brotherhood forged in shared fear, not shared courage. To speak up was to invite the Scorpion's sting upon oneself. And so, they remained silent, their silence a shield that left Ali exposed and alone. One sweltering afternoon, after a grueling run, Ali received a letter. His hands, trembling with exhaustion, carefully opened the envelope. It was from his mother, Fatima. Her flowing Urdu script filled the page with love, prayers, and the news that filled Ali's heart with a dizzying mix of elation and sheer terror. They were coming to visit his father, Hassan, his mother, and his Jan, his father's elder brother. They were making the long journey from Lahore for the upcoming family day. A wave of warmth washed over him at the thought of seeing them, of feeling his mother's embrace, of hearing his father's proud, booming laugh. But the warmth was instantly chased away by an icy dread. How could he face them? How could he let them see the shadows of fear in his eyes? More importantly, how could he hide the physical marks of Sergeant Bilal's discipline? The visit was in 3 days. For Ali, it felt like a lifetime and a death sentence. He folded the letter, the jaw of the news now feeling like a heavy stone in his gut. He had to survive the next hours. He had to present the illusion of the strong, proud soldier his family believed him to be. He had no idea that his family's visit wouldn't just expose his secret. It would detonate a bomb of truth that no one saw coming. The 2 days leading up to the family visit were the longest of Ali's life. It was as if Sergeant Bilal could smell the fear and desperation radiating from him. The scorpion's cruelty intensified, becoming more personal, more malicious. During a combat drill, Bilal paired himself with Ali. "Let's show these boys how a real soldier handles pressure," he sneered, his eyes glinting with a cold fire. The drill was meant to be about technique and control. For Bilal, it was an excuse. He threw Ali to the unforgiving ground again and again, his blows landing with a force that was far beyond instructional. A stray elbow caught Ali high on the cheekbone, sending a starburst of pain through his skull. Another accidental shove sent him stumbling into a rack of training rifles, his lips splitting open against the cold steel. By the end of the session, Ali's face was a canvas of pain. A deep, ugly bruise was beginning to bloom beneath his left eye, a dark purple cloud in a sky of pale, terrified skin. His lip was swollen and split, a constant, throbbing reminder of his own powerlessness. That evening, in the stark, sterile barracks, his friends gathered around him, their whispers a mix of concern and fear. "You have to report him, Ali," one of them, Asmin, urged, his voice barely audible. "This has gone too far." Ali just shook his head, the movement sending a fresh jolt of pain through his face. "And say what?" he mumbled through his swollen lip. "That I am not tough enough for training. That I can't handle the drills. He'll just say I was clumsy. He'll twist it. And then it will be worse. For me, and for anyone who speaks up." The logic was undeniable, a cold, hard chain that kept them all shackled in silence. The fear of reprisal was a far more potent force than the hope for justice. He spent hours in front of the small, cracked mirror in the washroom, dabbing at his face with cold water, trying to will the swelling down. He even tried to subtly apply a bit of mud, hoping it might pass as dust from the training grounds, but it only made the wounds look more grotesque. The shame was a physical weight, heavier than his back, more suffocating than the summer heat. He wasn't just hiding bruises, he was hiding his failure. The failure to be the strong soldier his father envisioned, the failure to protect himself, the failure to live up to the impossible ideal of the army. On the morning of the visit, Ali felt sick. He put on his freshly pressed uniform, the crisp fabric a stark contrast to the broken bow within it. He looked in the mirror one last time. The bruise had settled into a sickening collage of purple, blue, and yellow. His lip was a puffy, angry red line. There was no hiding it. His only hope was a lie. A plausible, pathetic lie. He would tell them he fell during an obstacle course. He rehearsed the words in his head, trying to make them sound convincing, but they felt like ash in his mouth. As he walked towards the designated family reception area, a soulless, beige room with plastic chairs and faded portraits of military heroes, every step felt like a walk towards his own execution. He was about to break his parents' hearts, and he felt like the worst son in the world. The air in the reception room was thick with the smell of floor polish and the quiet hum of a ceiling fan struggling against the heat. Families were scattered around, their happy chatter creating a symphony of reunion that felt jarring to Ali's frayed nerves. He saw them before they saw him. His mother, Fatima, her face etched with anticipation, clutching her purse. His father, Hassan, standing tall, his chest puffed out with a pride that made Ali's stomach clench with guilt. And beside them, his Jan, Ahmed, was a man of quiet contrasts. Dressed in a simple, elegant, he looked more like a retired professor than the successful logistics businessman the family knew him to be. He was older than his brother Hassan, with more grey in his hair and deeper lines around his kind eyes. But where Hassan was boisterous and expressive, was a pool of calm. He stood with a quiet stillness, his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze sweeping the room with an observant, intelligent curiosity that missed nothing. Ali. Fatima's voice broke through the haze of his anxiety. She rushed forward, her arms enveloping him in a hug that was both a comfort and a torment. He flinched slightly as her hand brushed against his bruised cheek. She pulled back instantly, her smile faltering, her eyes narrowing with a mother's instinct. Ali beta, what happened to your face? Hassan was right behind her, his proud smile evaporating as he saw his son's injuries. My God, son! What on earth? This was it. The moment he had dreaded. It's nothing, Ami. Abu, Ali said, his voice sounding weak and thin to his own ears. I was on the obstacle course yesterday. The high wall, I lost my footing and fell. It looks worse than it is, I promise. Fatima's hand gently touched his chin, tilting his face towards the light. Her eyes, filled with a deep, knowing sadness, told him she didn't believe a word of it. Hassan, however, tried to force a blustering optimism. Ah, well. The price of becoming a soldier. A few knocks and bruises build character. Makes you tough. But his voice lacked conviction. He was trying to convince himself as much as anyone else. Throughout this exchange, Ahmed remained silent. He hadn't moved. He simply watched, his calm, steady gaze fixed on Ali. It was a gaze that seemed to peel back the layers of the lie, to see straight into the heart of the fear and shame Ali was trying so desperately to conceal. He didn't ask a question. He didn't offer a comforting word. He just watched. And in his silence, Ali felt more exposed than he did under his mother's worried scrutiny or his father's forced cheerfulness. It was a silence that felt heavy with unspoken knowledge, a quiet that was louder than any accusation. The family sat down, the plastic chairs groaning in protest, and an awkward, heavy silence descended upon them, broken only by the rhythmic creak of the ceiling fan above. The joyful reunion Ali had once dreamed of had become a tense, painful ordeal. Just as Fatima was about to press Ali for more details, a shadow fell over their small family circle. A figure in a crisp, starched uniform stood before them, casting a long, imposing silhouette on the polished floor. It was Sergeant Bilal Khan. He had a smirk on his face, a look of predatory satisfaction. It was clear this wasn't a chance encounter, he had come here deliberately. Everything all right here? Bilal's voice was deceptively smooth, a layer of false courtesy over a core of pure malice. He looked past the parents, his eyes locking onto Ollie's. Just came to check on my cadet. We have to make sure our boys are making their families proud. Hassan, ever respectful of authority, began to stand up. Sergeant, thank you for taking such good care of our boy. He was just telling us about a fall he had. Bilal let out a short, cruel laugh. A fall, yes. He's a bit clumsy, your Ali. Still has a lot to learn. But don't you worry. He took a step closer, placing a heavy hand on Ali's shoulder, squeezing just hard enough to make Ali wince. We have special methods for teaching discipline. We'll make a man out of him yet. Or break him trying. The threat, veiled as it was, hung in the air like poison. Fatima gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Hassan's face darkened, the forced smile gone, replaced by a flicker of anger and confusion. He was a simple man, but he was not a fool. He knew disrespect when he saw it. Ali sat frozen, a new wave of cold terror washing over him. This was a power play. Bilal was demonstrating his dominance, showing Ali's family that here, in this place, he was the one in control. He was the one who owned their son. And still, Ahmed said nothing. He remained seated, his posture unchanged. He looked up at the sergeant, his expression unreadable. There was no anger, no fear, just a profound, unnerving stillness. He observed Bilal the way a scientist might observe an insect, with a detached, analytical curiosity. The sheer arrogance of the sergeant, the casual cruelty, the blatant disrespect to a visiting family took it all in, filing it away. Bilal, emboldened by the uncle's silence, pushed his luck. He patted Ali's bruised cheek with a familiarity that was utterly violating. You see this? This is the mark of learning. He'll have many more before he's through. It's for his own good. He then turned his dismissive gaze to. You're the uncle, right? You should tell your brother not to be so soft. This is the army, not a playground. Having delivered his final, condescending blow, Sergeant Bilal gave a mock salute and swaggered away, leaving a toxic silence in his wake. Hassan was trembling with barely suppressed rage. Fatima was openly weeping, her quiet sobs filling the space between them. Ali just stared at the floor, the shame now so complete, so absolute, that it felt like he might drown in it. He had not only failed to protect himself, but he had also allowed his family to be humiliated. The room, once filled with the promise of a happy reunion, now felt like a cage. The air in the room was thick with unspoken words. Hassan was pacing back and forth like a caged lion, muttering under his breath about honor and respect. Fatima's quiet sobs were the only other sound. Ali felt like a ghost, present but not really there, hollowed out by the public humiliation. Then a voice cut through the tension, calm and clear. Ali. It was his uncle. He hadn't moved. He was still sitting, his hands resting on his knees. He said the name not as a question, but as a gentle command for attention. Ali slowly lifted his head, his eyes meeting his uncle's. The quiet observer was gone. In his place was a man with an authority so profound, so absolute, it seemed to suck the very air out of the room. The kindness in his eyes had been replaced by a glint of cold, hard steel. Son, said, his voice low but carrying an immense weight. Look at me. And tell me the truth. Did you fall from a wall? The lie died in Ali's throat. He looked into his uncle's eyes and saw a depth he had never seen before. He saw a man who would not be lied to, a man who already knew the answer. The dam of fear and shame that had held him captive for months finally broke. A single tear traced a path through the dust on his cheek, and he let out a shuddering breath. No, John, he whispered, his voice cracking. It was him. Sergeant Bilal nodded slowly, as if confirming a fact he had already established. There was no "oh I told you so," no anger, no outburst. There was only a quiet, terrifying resolve. He placed a reassuring hand on his brother Hassan's arm, stopping his furious pacing. Hassan, sit down. Fatima, please. His tone was gentle but left no room for argument. He then turned to Ali, his voice still low. Tell me everything. And so, Ali did. The story poured out of him in a torrent of whispered constant tense, the public humiliations, the impossible tasks, the physical abuse disguised as training, the culture of fear that kept everyone silent. He told him about the other boys, too afraid to speak. He laid bare the entire ugly, rotten truth of platoon cha. When he finished, simply patted his nephew's shoulder. You did well, son. You did the right thing. Then, he stood up. He walked over to a quiet corner of the room, away from the other families, turning his back to them. He reached into the pocket of his and pulled out not a sleek, modern smartphone, but an old, simple Nokia relic from another era. The kind of phone that only made calls and sent text. He punched in a number from memory. He held the phone to his ear. After a moment, he spoke. His voice was quiet, almost conversational, yet it was imbued with a power that made the hairs on the back of Ali's neck stand up. "Tahir," he said, his tone familiar. A pause. "Yes, here." Another, longer pause. The person on the other end was clearly shocked. "Yes," continued, a hint of ice in his voice. "That. I'm standing in the reception hall of your academy. My nephew is a cadet here." He turned his head slightly, his gaze falling on Ali's bruised face. "And we have a problem. A serious problem of discipline." He listened for another moment, then finished the call with a simple, chilling command. "I'm in reception hall when. Come here. Now." He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. He turned back to his family, his face once again a mask of calm. But the storm had been unleashed. The phone call was a pebble tossed into a pond, and the ripples were about to become a tidal wave. Ali, Hassan, and Fatima could only stare, their minds reeling with the same, single question: who in God's name was Ahmed? The quiet hum of the reception hall was shattered less than 5 minutes later. The doors burst open with such force that they slammed against the walls, making several families jump in their seat. Framed in the doorway stood a towering figure in a decorated uniform, his face pale and beaded with sweat. It was Brigadier Tahir Mahmood, the commandant of the entire Frontier Infantry Training Center. A man whose presence usually inspired awe and fear in equal measure. But right now, he looked terrified. His eyes scanned the room frantically, bypassing the other families, searching. They landed on the small group in the corner. He saw Ahmed, and his back went ramrod straight. All the bluster and authority drained from his face, replaced by a look of utter, profound deference. He marched towards them, his polished boots clicking urgently on the floor. He came to a stop not in front of Hassan, the elder brother, but in front of. He clicked his heels together and gave a salute so sharp it could have cut glass. "General," the brigadier breathed, his voice tight with shock and anxiety. I had no idea you were on site, sir. My apologies." The word hung in the air, electric. "General." Hassan's jaw dropped. Fatima's eyes were wide with disbelief. Ali felt as if the floor had fallen out from under him. His uncle, his quiet, unassuming John who ran a logistics company, was a general. Didn't return the salute. A retired general doesn't have to. He simply gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Brigadier Tahir. It has been a long time." His voice was flat, devoid of warmth. "I came here today as a citizen, as an uncle visiting his nephew. But what I have seen, what I have heard has forced me to remember my old life." He gestured towards Ali's bruised face. "This," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerously low level, "is what you call training at this academy. This is the honor you are instilling in our future soldiers. Humiliation. Brutality. Fear." The brigadier flinched as if struck. "Sir, I assure you, I had no knowledge of this. There will be a full inquiry. I will get to the bottom of it immediately." "You will do more than that," interrupted, his voice like chipping ice. "You will bring Sergeant Bailal Khan to me. Right here. Right now. And you will bring the company commandant. And then you and I will have a very long, very detailed conversation about the chain of command and where, exactly, it has broken." The brigadier didn't hesitate. He span around, barking orders into his radio, his voice laced with a panic that echoed throughout the hall. "Get me Captain Asif and Sergeant Bilal of Platoon 4. Reception hall van. On the double. Move." The power dynamic had not just shifted, it had been completely inverted. The entire room was silent, all eyes on the unassuming man in the simple who held the commandant of the academy in the palm of his hand. It was now clear. This was not just any general. This was Lieutenant General, retired, Ahmed, the legendary former corps commandant of Quetta, a man known as the architect for his strategic brilliance and his absolute, unwavering intolerance for corruption or dishonor. A living legend in the armed forces. And he had just been shown the deepest disrespect by a NCO. The fallout was no longer a question of if, but of how catastrophic it would be. The arrival of Sergeant Bilal was a study in contrast. Summoned by a frantic junior officer, he swaggered into the reception hall, a look of annoyance on his face, clearly irritated at being pulled away from his domain. He saw the brigadier and his expression shifted to one of professional respect, but he still hadn't grasped the gravity of the situation. Then he saw who the brigadier was standing with. He saw the old man in the civilian clothes, the one he had mocked just 30 minutes earlier. And he saw the look on his commandant's face. The blood drained from Bilal's own face. The arrogant smirk vanished, replaced by an expression of pure, unadulterated terror. "Sergeant," said, his voice dangerously soft. He didn't need to shout. The quietness was far more terrifying. "You told me you teach discipline. You told me you would make a man out of my nephew." Bilal began to tremble. "General, I didn't know it was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Took a step forward. He was not a large man, but his presence seemed to swell, filling the room with an almost physical pressure. "Did you misunderstand the regulations against striking a subordinate? Did you misunderstand the basic tenets of honor and human decency? Or did you simply believe that your rank gave you the right to be a petty tyrant, a bully hiding in a uniform?" He turned to Ali. "Ali, is this the man who did this to you?" For the first time in months, Ali felt a surge of strength. He looked his tormentor directly in the eye, and with a clear, steady voice, he said, "Yes, Jan. This is the man." That was all it took. The brigadier, acting on an unspoken command from, barked, "Sergeant Bilal Khan. You are under arrest. You will be confined to quarters pending a full investigation. Military police, escort him out." 2 MPs, who had been waiting grimly by the door, moved in. They grabbed the Sergeant Bilal by the arms and dragged him from the room, his pleas for mercy echoing behind him. The scorpion had been caged and stripped of all his power in a matter of minutes. But was not finished. The investigation he triggered was swift and merciless. It ripped through the training center like a shockwave. Other cadets from Platoon 4, sensing the monumental shift in power and feeling safe for the first time, came forward. They spoke of Bilal's extortion, his cruelty, his systemic abuse. The rot was deeper than just one sergeant. The company commandant was relieved of his post for his gross negligence. The entire training doctrine for the wing was put under review. In the days that followed, Ali was moved to a different platoon under a new, professional command. His face healed, but more importantly, his spirit began to mend. The fear was replaced by a quiet confidence. The shame was washed away by the tide of justice. Stayed for a few days, not at the academy, but in Quetta. One evening, he sat with Ali, looking out at the mountains as the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. "True strength," Ali, the old general said, his voice back to its usual calm, kind tone, is not about enduring abuse in silence. It's not about being the toughest or the cruelest. True strength is about integrity. It's about having the courage to protect the vulnerable, to speak the truth, even when your voice shakes. The uniform doesn't give a man honor. A man's actions give the uniform honor. Never forget that. Ali nodded, the words sinking in deep. He had come to the army to become a man. He had thought that meant ending pain and hardship. He now understood it meant upholding justice and truth, for himself and for others. His family visit was over, but his real education had just begun. In the end, this was never a story about revenge. It was a story about restoration. The restoration of a young man's spirit, the restoration of honor to a platoon, and the restoration of faith in the principle that no one is above the fundamental laws of decency and respect. A uniform is a sacred trust. It is a promise made to the nation, a symbol of protection, courage, and unwavering honor. When that trust is broken by the very people sworn to uphold it, it takes a different kind of courage to mend it. Sometimes, it takes the quiet and yielding strength of someone who remembers what that uniform is truly supposed to stand for. General didn't use his power to crush a man, he used his authority to illuminate a truth that had been hidden in the shadows of fear. The lesson from that day in Quetta is a simple but profound one: true power is not the ability to dominate, but the will to protect. True discipline is not born from fear, but from respect. And the loudest voice for justice is often not the one that shouts, but the one that speaks the truth, calmly and clearly, when it matters most. We all have a role to play in standing against injustice, no matter how small it may seem. So I want to ask you, have you ever witnessed a quiet act of courage that changed everything? A moment where someone stood up for what was right, not with anger, but with integrity. Share your story in the comments below. Your experience could inspire someone else to find their voice. And if this story of courage and justice moved you, please show your support by hitting the like button, sharing it with your friends and family, and subscribing to our channel for more powerful stories that deserve to be told. Thank you for watching.